all of your reasoning is wrong. And if you cannot reason, you cannot compete. You must have the ability to engage in critical analysis and thinking. One of the problems with Cheryl McCarthy is that she has not been taught how to think. She has not been taught how to critically analyze. And that's not something that is just isolated to Cheryl McCarthy. That is something that has happened to so many of us, because you cannot learn how to think by going to school. School is not the place to learn how to think. And then if you do learn how to think, your reasoning is based on fallacies. One of the things I want to talk about tomorrow, for those of you who can come out to Seton Hall, is very easy to get to. Get off at the train station in Newark. The law school is only about 3 or 4 blocks right up the street from the law school. So it's not difficult at all. 4 o'clock tomorrow. Many of you should be there. But we are going to have to learn how to measure the art of critical thinking and analysis. And we're going to have to get away from sloganeering, because slogans is a substitute for thinking. People who engage in slogans, and that's all that is existing in the black community, is creating substitutes for critical thinking. One of the things I heard this week on radio, let's look at this. People this week said, we must get behind our mayor. We must get behind our mayor. Now let's engage in a little critical thinking. We must get behind our mayor is a slogan. If you are not thinking, it can be a marketable concept. One that you would buy, like some of you would buy the Brooklyn Bridge. There are many people in our community that if they were fish, they would be on a hook and be delivered to somebody's plate. Because every bait that is thrown out there, we snap at it if we were fish. But let's look at this slogan. We must get behind our mayor. The problem with that is that we have been getting behind people for the last 400 years. The problem with Montgomery was we were trying to get away from behind somebody. The civil rights movement was concerned with not being behind somebody. So the idea we must get behind our mayor could be a dangerous concept, because sheep behind a Judas goat is led off to slaughter. Getting behind somebody can be very dangerous, but psycholinguistically, you can begin to sympathize with somebody and say, yeah, man, that's right, we better get behind our mayor. Now, the problem is that the mayor of this city is certainly under attack. But this is critical thinking. He is under attack because he created the problem. Now we're dealing with facts. I'm not dealing with rhetoric up here, I'm dealing with facts. The mayor, after Brian Watkins was killed in the subway, a white boy from Utah, went to the legislature to borrow $3.5 billion to hire 10,000 cops. Though it was those 10,000 cops that he hired that was out there in front of City Hall trying to lynch him. Now we're dealing with facts now. We're dealing with critical thinking. You see, you cannot get emotional. I am not an emotional person. I don't have any sympathies or feelings for anything. Now, you got to be a cold-blooded animal out here. You can have a smile on your face, but you got to be cold-blooded. You cannot let anything affect you and affect your ability to think. You can't do that. So when you begin to look at that, the question becomes, well, he created the problem on his own. Not only do we have 10,000 more cops, not only is New York the greatest police state in America, the highest concentration of police. If you check the statistics, these are facts again. No other state has a greater ratio of citizen to people than New York. All right? Thanks to David Dinkins. No other state is building more prisons than New York, thanks to Mario Cuomo. There's a correlation between police and prisons. Now we're dealing with policy. So when people say, well, we got to get behind the mayor, that can be dangerous. The other part about it is this. Why do we have to get behind the mayor? Why do we have to get behind the mayor? Now let's think about that. If, in fact, we had not elected somebody to the mayor's office who could not exercise political power, then it would be all right for us to go outside the city hall and protest. But we have elected somebody inside. He's the mayor of the city of New York. Why can't he exercise municipal power? Why can't he do what any mayor is authorized to do? And that is fire all 10,000 of those crackers yesterday. Why do we have to get behind somebody who is afraid to exercise power? What are we getting behind him for? Where will we be headed if we got behind him? We're talking about critical thinking. The ability to think critically. Secondly, in addition to the fact that he has the authority to fire every last one of them, all of them are out there on probation and could be fired for no reason. They all just got hired. You don't have to give a reason. You just wake up and fire all the probationaries. You do that tomorrow if you had guts. If you could think critically and if you had courage, we could resolve this problem tonight. But they want you to get behind the mayor. They want you to get all worked up emotionally while you are not thinking because you are engaging in sloganeering, which is what you are famous for. Secondly, the mayor of the city of New York has the authority to decertify the Patrolmen's Benevolent Organization as the bargaining unit for the police and refuse to check off dues for the cops, which is the source of their power. So if you are getting ready to move on somebody moving on you, you cut out their power center. And their power center is their money. If you are thinking critically. If you are thinking critically. Get behind somebody. We are tired of getting behind people. Prostitutes get behind pimps. Uncle Tom get behind slave masters. Male dogs get behind female dogs. Sniffing. The worst position we've been in for the last 400 years is being behind somebody and in somebody's behind. That's why we eat so many chitlins. In somebody's behind. Get behind somebody. The most ridiculous thing I ever heard. I'm going to have to... I got to go through a summary tonight because I don't have time to get exhaustive. See, one night I'm going to have to come in the slave and speak. See, I don't really speak in the slave because if I speak in the slave, it's going to get detailed. I have to do summary statements because of time. That's the reason why we start on time, so I can put in a few things so that we can begin to think. Just food for thought. The second point that I want to raise, because you're getting into another trick. When somebody presents a slogan, you must conduct research and investigation. The first step. You cannot hear something and take off with it. This week, everybody said, man, I want a civilian complaint review board. I'm for that civilian complaint review board. There is no civilian complaint review board that is being offered to you. This is not a civilian complaint review board that Dave and these city council members are claiming to be a civilian complaint review board. Just because somebody calls something a civilian complaint review board does not make it a civilian complaint review board. People are selling watches all day long, claiming that they're a Rolex. Claiming that they're a Rolex. You gonna pop out $1,000 for one of these $3 timepieces just because they say it's a Rolex? This is not a civilian complaint review board. The biggest trick that is being played on you is the claim that this is a civilian complaint review board. The authority to discipline cops under Dinkins' proposal and under the city council proposal remains with the police. Let me repeat that again. What we got to understand, and has to be discussed one night, and it can be discussed in great detail, we must understand the definition of power, the elements of power, and the consequences of power. That's a discussion in itself. Power. You see, the mere fact that you are sitting at the table, and this is Malcolm told you this, and you don't have a plate, means that you are really not a diner. If you don't have a plate, and you may be sitting at the table, but if you don't have a plate, you are not a diner. The mere fact that civilians are named to sit on a board does not make it a civilian complaint review board. Power defines the nature of that board. Where is the power? That's what you got to ask yourself. Who has the power? Who can make the decision to affect somebody's life? If you examine the Civilian Complaint Review Board, the power to discipline cops remains where it is today with Phil Caruso. The power is not going to be shifted. The only thing you got to do tomorrow is to call downtown to your city council person and tell them to mail you out a copy of this proposed bill. Call the mayor's office and tell them to send you a copy and read it. Read it. Don't engage in sloganeering. Read. And you will find out that the power base has not shifted. They have put decoration around the power base to deceive you and to get you worked up because they know you're angry. But they can't give you the power to control a military apparatus. You can't have that power. You have to shed blood over getting that power. You can't take over a military by creating a civilian complaint review board. People who have guns are prepared to shoot their weapons to retain their power. You got to understand that. So do not tomorrow get on LIB or RL anywhere else down for that civilian complaint review board, because it is not a civilian complaint review board. It's a trick that Siegel of the Civil Liberties Union and Dinkins and these city council people are playing on you. Politics is like wrestling. If you don't know what politics is, turn on and watch a wrestling match. That's what politics is. You can't take that seriously. These are paid actors to keep you confused. That's what you're dealing with out here. Gorgeous George and that crowd. Study them. That's what politics is. They're all in this together. They drink together. They have fun together. They're like the legal profession. At the end of the evening, prosecutors and defense lawyers all get somewhere in a bar and drinking liquor and telling tales. And you think they're mad at each other when y'all see them in courtrooms. Now they're play acting to keep you confused, because you like to watch combat. You like to see people fighting each other. And they understand that. They know your taste. They have done marketing research. They know what to give you to keep you pacified. And that's what they are doing. So we got to begin to engage in critical thinking and get away from sloganeering. I could come here tonight. I am somebody. Up with hope, down with dope. Y'all know all the slogans. That's not critical thinking. That's not critical analysis. Those are nursery rhymes. Negroes 70 years old figuring out nursery rhymes. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You got to get beyond that. That's what we're trying to do. That's the reason why we're going upstate to the retreat. Let me explain something. As happens in most events here with UAM, everything that we do here, we are not trying to make a profit. Contrary to a friend of mine who called up this week, who should be given an opportunity next week. If he's not here this week, I will reserve time for him to come up on the stage and we will deal with that. Next week, we will deal with money and finances. Next week. You don't have to get on LIB to raise a question. You can raise it here. If you really want to deal with the answers, if you really is concerned about what is going on. So when I heard this person talk about, well, why is it that they have to raise money at the slave theater? It wasn't what was said. Again, let's engage in some critical thinking. It wasn't what was said. It was what wasn't said. Why wasn't he concerned about all of the 15 or 20,000 churches that raise money every Sunday and who is doing nothing with it? Millions of dollars every week. Why wasn't he concerned about that? Why wasn't he concerned about mothers calling me in the midnight hour? And I had to go to some hospital or something in the midnight hour, paying tolls and not getting anything from UAM. Why don't these mothers go to their preachers? That's why they're getting the money. Why don't they go to their preachers? Why are they calling me in the midnight hour and giving hundreds of millions of dollars to preachers every Sunday? Why wasn't he concerned about that? No, I know what the problem is. Negroes are scavengers. Crabs. Put crabs in a barrel. One try to go up and do something. The others pull them down. Scavengers. That's the problem in the black community. That's the reason why we are not producing anything. Scavengers do not produce. Scavengers eat waste. That's our problem. The second thing is, nobody is charging him to get in here. Ain't nobody charging him to get in here. Ain't nobody charging him to go up there on the retreat. Ain't nobody charging for that. The only thing people are going to pay for on that retreat is peg leg baits. The people who are going to engage in workshops are people who are paid in 4 figures if they were doing it somewhere else. And they're going to do it up there for nothing. But they don't attack people who are making money off the movement. Crabs want to attack somebody who is trying to do something. No money being made at UAM. Every 3 or 4 months, this is a fact, I hold a fundraiser for myself, or some people hold a fundraiser in order to contribute to UAM. People who are concerned about the suspension donate money, and every dime goes to maintain what we are doing here because it is worthwhile. There is nothing like this in the country. Nowhere. And everybody that come here make mention of that. Alcee Hastings came here because he was being impeached as a result of Rudolph Giuliani. You see, not getting behind Dave don't mean that we don't get rid of Giuliani and Caruso. But getting behind Dave is not the solution. That's not the way to deal with Caruso and Giuliani. Giuliani and Caruso, when they were down at City Hall, let's be clear about this. That was not an attack on Dave. That was an attack on us. That was history repeating itself. This is what we talk about critical thinking. 125 years ago, after blacks were so-called freed and the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment was enacted and blacks was exercising political power, the Ku Klux Klan was formed to terrorize blacks and take away the little political power that we were exercising. It was no accident that one day after Sharpton got 170,000 black votes, that the Ku Klux Klan in the form of Phil Caruso and the cops was in front of City Hall. That wasn't no attack on Dave. That was an attack on us. This is our fight. And I'm not going to get behind a punk like Dave Dickens to wage it.
We've been fighting these kinds of things. Alcee Hastings ruled in favor of the Haitians some years ago. Rudolph Giuliani was in the U.S. Justice Department, did not like it, and ordered Alcee Hastings to be prosecuted. And when nobody else went to Washington, United African Movement was there. The National Bar Association was not there. The NAACP was not there. And he was a member. The Urban League was not there. And he was a member. The National Baptist Convention was not there. And he was religious. Jesse Jackson was not there. And he was supposed to be in the vanguard of the movement. It was this organization that went down to Washington. And stood with Alcee Hastings. The Negro gonna be concerned about us raising some petty cash. Raising some petty cash. Now it's sickening, but he gonna get a chance next week. The Negro gonna get a chance next week. Because you know me, I will deal with any Negro face to face. Now this is for real. What we're talking about is for real. This whole thing out here. So we're not talking about playing games. We're talking about something that is for real. Something that black folks got to be involved in. But you got to have critical thinking and analysis. That's what you got to have. You got to have commitment. You got to be willing to sacrifice. I don't mind ever doing anything for my people. I have a track record on that. 73 people got arrested on the day of outrage. I signed a notice of appearance for 73 people and represented all 73. Had to suspend my law practice. People talking about suspending practice. I've been suspending my law practice for years. This ain't the first time I had to suspend a law practice. 5 months in court with Al Sharpton. People look at Reverend Sharpton today and say, right on. But they don't understand that if we had not stood by him here, had not made the sacrifices here, all of these Negro politicians now who are benefiting, you can't even get around Sharpton no more. For everybody suffocating and smothering. But in the rough times, in a time when nobody else was standing, some people had to make serious sacrifices. When you're in court 5 months and you're getting no money, and these crackers downtown want their rent checks, and they want their typewriter checks, and word processor checks, and photocopy machine checks, and book checks, and every other check. Where do black people think that money come from? Then Negro gonna raise the question, well, why are they raising petty cash at the slave theater? You done made every sacrifice under the sun. Central Park sat down there 2 months in pretrial hearings. No money. Jonah Perry, 2 months, no money. The Priest case, no money. Howard Beach, Tawana Brawley, Michael Stewart, no money. Raising the consciousness of people. Some Negro gonna try to chump off. So bad with me. And this is what really hurts. Everybody in UAM has been to Africa but me. And I'm the chairman of the organization. I can't go. Because you got to make some financial investment. There's no money for me to go. You give everything you have and some Negro going to chump off. I want that Negro here next week. And we're talking about the real reality. You don't play games no more. You don't play these kinds of games. When people giving up everything they have, 2.5 months suspended for standing up for a black girl. Every other Negro would have been down there selling out. And then these Negroes are going to chump something. You don't play those kinds of games. Times are too serious for that. There are some of us who are serious about our liberation. There are some of us who are dead serious about our liberation. Need to learn how to exercise your mouth. You can't do these things unless somebody is sacrificing. But I don't believe that those who are not sacrificing should not benefit. That's why I said everything that we do here, if humanly possible, should be free. Those who can afford to give, give. Those who honestly cannot, cannot. That's why we don't put a price tag. We held a convention, no fees. The only time we paid fee was for Harvest Manor, when we had to have a banquet there. So we need to be for real. And stop being crabs in the barrel. And stop trying to hurt each other. When people are trying to sacrifice and give everything they have for us as a people. We need to do that. Because for me, nothing is more important than my freedom. For me. And I'm willing to give it all for my freedom. I know what my condition is. Some of you are fooling with yourselves. Some of you are hallucinating and don't know what your real status is in America. Or some of you don't care. Some of you have been brainwashed, where you have accepted an inferior status. But there are some of us who are not going to permit it. And so we're going upstate because we got some serious business to do. And those of you who can go, please come. Because we got a plan for 83. We got a plan for 84. Because we got to deal with Caruso. 94 and 93. We got to deal with those. We got a plan, and we got to do it in a way that we are doing more than just simply reacting to violence. And so those of you who can come up there next 2 weeks from now, do so. There's going to be a lot of things going on. Barbara and I was talking last night after we got off the air, and one of the things that is very important for us to do, and that's what we're going to be doing, other people are going to be meeting, we got to have a statewide political convention. We got to have our own black independent political party. Sharpton's candidacy showed very clearly that we have the numbers. And it is shaking people to no end. But we would be betraying you if we did not take the next step and form a political party. But a political party cannot be formed overnight. It has to be serious planning and serious work. But we owe it to ourselves. I don't care where we go, to have our own party. To have something to speak for us. People talking about human rights. And they're saying, well, let's go down to the United Nations to demand our human rights. How can you go down to the United Nations and demand your human rights when we are not even human to each other? What are we doing downtown demanding something? We can't be human to each other. We can't talk to each other. But we want to be in front of some building asking some crackers for something that's ours at birth. You don't demand human rights. You exercise human rights. You go out the street tonight and exercise human rights. Man can't give you human rights. That was given to you at birth. Negroes claim that they don't believe in civil rights, but they're making a civil rights move. Going in front of a United Nations and begging for something is a civil rights move. I'm going to stop now. For those of you who can, join us tomorrow, next week, big program, The Impact of Black Radio. Bob Law, Mark Riley, Reverend Dale Shields, Ann Tripp, and Imhotep Gary Bird. The week after that, Amos Wilson at the Slave Theater. Amos had just written a new book, a serious book on education, the genocide of black children. We should all be there when he comes, because that's what they're doing. Anytime that your children have to go to an elementary school and the first thing they require them to do is a pledge of allegiance to your enemy, you're in trouble. And you want to know why your children are acting funny? Because they have been indoctrinated. You can't go to public schools unless you pledge allegiance to your enemy. That's a condition of education. Somebody needs to be dealing with that. Pledging allegiance to your enemy. We must create ceremonies and rituals where our children at an early age commit themselves to the African race and to African people. We got to have ceremonies before any child goes to public school. If they got to go, they should pledge allegiance to their African roots and pledge to defend their roots with their last ounce of blood. We lose before we get started. The week after that, Dr. Barry Shangle. Ishaka Musa Barry Shangle. The second week in October. And then finally, we're going to get off this point, we have honored the last 2 years at Bethany Baptist Church. People talk about what do. We do a lot of things. One of the reasons why we raise money here is because we don't want Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and others to be penniless. That's why we raise money. Because we think there's a double standard when we can give Reverend Popechops $5,000 a week and can't give Dr. Ben and Clark nothing. Something wrong with that. Every week these preachers are picking up $10,000 and $15,000 and $20,000. Minimally. Minimally. Then we can't do something for our own. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to also talk about the Negro as Frankenstein tomorrow. I'm going to talk about some genetic engineering. Yeah, push button, remote control. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Now we got to deal with this Negro problem and this Negro monster. That got to be examined. We're going to do that tomorrow. But finally, let me just say this. The last 2 years, we had to do this. We started off great at Bethany, Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. Wonderful ceremonies. But this year, we don't want the sisters to think that sisters have not contributed immensely to the history of our people and one sister who has never been given the credit that she deserves. Most of you don't know of all that she has done to elevate our history. Somebody that you have had the pleasure of being here and hearing, but will be honored. We're going to bring her now all the way from Chicago, Illinois. That's how we deal. Dr. Barbara Sizemore. Bethany Baptist Church, December 7th. It's going to be a big night. That's one thing I tell Roy them every year. I said, look, I want these programs to be great. I want these to be memorable nights because these people are giants in our history and should be honored while they are alive. And Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark will tell you that the William Leo Hansberry Award is one of the most coveted awards in America that we give right here at the United African Movement. Because not only do we give out the award, we give some big money with it. That's what you got to do. They're our people. That's where you show love. You don't show love by trying to starve somebody out. You show love by support. You can't have a family and get a paycheck and go somewhere else and spend your money and your children at home hungry, and you come home and claim you love them with no money in your pocket. You don't deal with love that way. So December 7th, Dr. Barbara Sizemore, Bethany Baptist Church. All right, now, we are going to momentarily bring on our speaker for the evening, Dr. Gloria Lattimore Peace.
Mr. Peace, I just had a heart attack. But I know that the reason why I was having a heart attack was not because of you. So, but certainly, just let me say that we are so pleased to have you here, and I certainly want to apologize to our people who have come to hear you, because this is a responsibility of the United African Movement in order to make sure that people are here timely. So it's very seldom that we get caught up in this, and I'm certainly not one of those who like this. Tonight we even got started by 7:15 just to make sure that we were going to do early. So, as I said before, that's an organizational problem, and it will be resolved as an organizational problem. So I want to extend to all of you our deepest apologies, because one thing that we have to do is to respect each other, and that's very important. But after saying that, you can see that the theater is packed and that they have heard your clarion call and that our people are here. We can no longer see people like we used to because the fire department has been examining us recently. You know, anytime when white folks know that they can't get into a place, and they start their nonsense. But black folks got to have one place, one night a week that we can be to ourselves. The last time I introduced Dr. Peace to you, but after what she did earlier this year and what she is continuing to do, she needs no introduction. So the night is moving on and we're going to get moving on. Let me ask you to give her a welcome that is only done at the Slave Theater. Dr. Gloria, peace.
I love you too. If you were here in March, you know that we begin our presentation with libation. And I have my adopted son, Kevin, and his beautiful wife with me. I got 7 other children you haven't seen. And those were not adopted. As you can see, I like my husband a lot. But I'm going to ask Kevin to come forward with libation before we begin.
Hotel brothers and sisters. As always, when we come together as African people, we must always pay homage to the ancestors and acknowledge their presence, and we'll do so with the libation. So may we have silence, please? In the beginning was blackness, and out of the womb of the blackness came the Word. And through the Word was brought forth life. May we open this libation with the hearing of the ears, the seeing of the eyes, and the speaking of the tongue. We ask this evening that the ancestors bestow upon us the words of power, which will enable us to evoke the divine utterances through which we can come forth by day. We ask that the winds of the ancestral spirits allow us to breathe through the nostrils of Amun-Ra. And through that breath, may our hearts become righteous and balanced against the feather of Ma'at, or truth, so that we may live and our ancestors may live through us. We ask the ancestors to evoke the spirit and the transformative powers of Kepra, so that we can connect with the Netchers, through which the totality of the African community can be united this evening. May the circle be unbroken. May the ancestors be acknowledged. May the Netchers be satisfied. Hotel brothers and sisters.
And Hotep again. It is our tradition as African people to recognize and to revere those who have brought us to life, nurtured us, supported us, sustained us. When we praise those both living and dead who keep us alive, we call forth the best in ourselves as testimony that we are worthy of their concern. Thus, we salute all of our ancestors and we thank them for coming into being, bearing the light and the life, and for building the foundation of Ma'at and establishing the divine standards that we may know those to which we must be committed. We thank the ancestors for the elders whose long experience with life has taught them how to live it and how to give it. And we honor the ancestors and the elders for the wisdom they have bequeathed to the race, especially that which enables us to know that one does not become an elder primarily or merely by growing old, but instead by becoming wiser in the way. And we thank our ancient ones that we are not among those who were born but who never lived, having walked upside down with feces issuing forth from foul mouths, doing what our brothers call talking shit, and what others term making maps of territories that do not exist. And so it is that as we tread the straight and narrow path before us, we must acknowledge those who help us to walk that walk and talk that talk, and yet stay on course. Therefore, giving honor to the late Queen, my mother, Ella Manning Boyce James, and her favorite scholar, Dr. John Henry Clark, I want to pay tribute for a moment to my favorite scholar and son, Brother Kiari T.H. Cheatwood. As a member of the faculty that interviewed Kiari for his position at Northeastern Illinois University, I was immeasurably impressed with his incisive responses to our questions, particularly one which fortunately I didn't ask concerning heroes. It was during that session that he taught us that a hero is one who maintains the status quo, which by definition ought to render said agents personas non grata, at least to the victims of the status quo. My interest in Cheatwood's work has continued from that day to this, including the period during which he helped me to overcome my European training in order that I might learn to read. It took an entire summer of reading the authentic African writing he recommended before I finally was able to comprehend parts of his Valley of the Anointers and Psalms of Redemption. By the time I had read his Bloodstorm and Seeds of Consistency, Fruits of Life, he had convinced me that I could also write and had persuaded Native Son publishers to publish my essay, Talking Tall, in The Race, a book he edited and which includes contributions by Yosef Ben Yachanan, the master scholar, Dr. John Henry Clark, and himself. Suffice it to say, Kiari T.H. Cheatwood is not only my mentor, having taught me how to read and to write, but he is also griot to the race. Not only has he edited a powerful new book by Dr. Ben, From African Captive to Insane Slave, but he has simultaneously completed his 10th book, Life on an April Canvas. Those of us who have been blessed to savor his work know that it is not only prolific, it is profound. He has served the race as a conduit of its wisdom, and it will be through Brother Cheatwood that many of us, like myself, will become acquainted with the essential frame of reference that will empower us to put an end to the cultural desecration of our people. Kiari T.H. Cheatwood, I salute you, and I thank you for advancing my utterance, that I might add mine to what you term the significant voices in the improvisational chorus at the jam session on Wednesday evenings at the Slave. An African proverb states that even one who does not know where he is going ought to know at least where he has come from. Yet it is a testament to our condition that it cannot go without saying that we are an African people. No matter where the location of the range in the diaspora, Malcolm said, if a cat gives birth to kittens in an oven, you don't call them biscuits. We are not biscuits. We are African people. No matter what others claim their relationship with animals to be, we are not evolved apes. Imani Cheatwood says, and I agree, we are evolved humans. Our primary kinship is with each other, not with primates. Others may claim that they are the chosen people, but the record shows that we, Africans, are the people. We, the people. No matter how many others try to impersonate us, we, the people. No matter how many times they try to destroy us by robbing us of our birthright, dispossessing us of our land, desecrating our way, and calling us out of our name, we the people. It was through the utterance of our sacred name that we came forth into being. From the beginning of the beginning, our origin and originator bore the same sacred name, in tribute to the African woman who, Ben Yakinen says, as the source of the African people, is the highest representative of the African God. And Iyikwe Arma has said that a people losing sight of origins is dead, and a people dead to purposes are lost. How is it that we have been brought to such a low level of existence that we allow not only the blaspheming of our African God, but the defiling of our entire family, our elders, and our children as well? How is it that we tolerate being called out of our name? We are not the first to be confronted by these questions, yet we may be well among the last to have a mind to search for the answers. That is because there are too few survivors of the African Holocaust who possess both the vision and the courage to see our predicament and tell it like it is. Yet our problem is so pervasive that even those who try to play past it can't avoid running into it. These inadvertent sightings are usually so overwhelming that eyewitnesses sometimes don't know whether to shit or go blind. They are often left without a choice. This recurring problem has been studied by all of our major scholars. It has been called by many names. I myself identified this process of de-Africanization as deculturation. Dr. Clark refers to it as cultural disruption. The late Dr. Bobby E. Wright diagnosed it as menticide, and Dr. Amos N. Wilson pronounced it psychogenocide. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing says it's inferiorization. But it will take more than an intellectual water pistol to quench these flames, because this raging inferno is being tended by Lucifer himself. And his partners are continuously banking and stoking this fire. So we continue to struggle in this incinerator while being asphyxiated by the toxic fumes of self-hate and cultural desecration, as Cheatwood so aptly names our dilemma. Cultural desecration is a genocidal process that is so incendiary that its victims serve as the charcoal for their own funeral pyre. Our only choice, if we are serious about extinguishing this hellfire, is to smother this conflagration before it consumes the entire race. First and foremost, we must understand that culture does not refer to the arts or to a way of life. Culture is not a lifestyle, a style of life, not an imitation of life. Culture, accurately defined, is the human way of life. Elder Cheatwood teaches us human life is sacred. It is meant to be livable, beautiful, eternal. Cultural desecration is the putrefaction of what human life was and is meant to be. It incorporates the problem of the babies being ripped apart, torn asunder, destroyed,